Hello, everybody. Greetings. I am John Chan, Chief Executive Officer of BlackBerry Limited and Executive Chair of the Board of Directors. On behalf of the board and the management team, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the company's annual meeting of shareholders. As we did last year, we're hosting our meeting in a virtual-only format through a live audio webcast to mitigate risk to the health and safety of the company's shareholders, employee, and other stakeholders related to the pandemic. Last year, we also found that the virtual format was more inclusive, and many more shareholders were able to join us than at our in-person meetings in recent years. Even though the meeting is in the virtual format, procedures have been implemented to ensure that shareholders and proxy holders, regardless of their location, will be able to participate in this meeting and engage with us. Registered shareholders and valid proxy holders who are participating online will be able to listen to the meeting, submit questions, and vote in real time. This year's beneficial shareholders will also be able to submit questions through the online meeting platform. The secretary of the meeting will cover the procedures for all of this in just a moment. With that said, it is now my pleasure to introduce the member of the company's board of directors who are in attendance on this webcast today. They are Mike Daniels, Tim Dattels, Lisa Disbrow, Dick Lynch, Laurie Smalden-Alsop, Barbara Steinmetz, and Pam Watson, as well as Wayne Waters. In addition to the board, we also have members of the company's executive team attending this webcast, and we're also joined by Phil Kurtz, the corporate secretary and deputy general counsel of the company. The formal part of the meeting will be chaired by me and will include my annual updates on BlackBerry's strategy and performance. Following completion of the formal business of the meeting, we will address questions submitted by shareholders. I would now like to call this meeting to order, and as chair, I will ask Phil Kurtz to act as secretary of the meeting. Phil will now go over the procedures and items for this meeting, and item of business for the meeting.
Thank you, John. I'd like to start by highlighting a couple of important procedural matters that apply to our virtual meeting relating to questions and voting. Questions can be submitted by any shareholder or proxy holder who logged in with a control number or username using the messaging feature of the virtual interface. If you logged into the meeting as a guest without a control number, you'll not be able to submit questions. Questions will not be displayed, but will be read or summarized as appropriate. Generally, questions will be addressed only during the Q&A session after the formal part of the meeting. However, any questions related to procedural matters or that are directly related to an item of business may be addressed earlier. Voting on all matters will be conducted by electronic ballot. Registered shareholders and duly appointed proxy holders will be asked to vote on each item of business only after the presentation of all the business items. In order to expedite the formal business of today's meeting, I will make all motions on voting matters. When you're asked to vote, you'll receive a message on the virtual interface requesting you to register your votes. You'll only have a certain amount of time to do so when the polls are open. Preliminary voting results will be provided during the meeting, and final detailed voting results will be published on the Canadian Securities Administrators' SEDAR website and the SEC's EDGAR website and on our website after the conclusion of the meeting. Pina Pacifico of Computershare Investor Services will act as scrutineer for the meeting today. I confirm that we have received a declaration of Computershare confirming that the notice of this meeting was properly given to all of the shareholders entitled to receive notice, together with the management proxy circular and form of proxy. Copies of the management proxy circular and other meeting materials are available under the company's profile on SEDAR and EDGAR and on the Envision website established for this meeting. I've received the scrutineer's preliminary report stating that a quorum of shareholders is in attendance. The scrutineer's report shows that there are shareholders or proxy holders in attendance on this live webcast today, holding 313,683,475 common shares of the company, representing 55.4% of the shares issued and outstanding. I therefore declare this annual meeting of shareholders to be regularly called and properly constituted for the transaction of business. First item of business is a presentation of the financial statements of the company for the fiscal year ended February 28, 2021. These include the consolidated balance sheets as at February 28, 2021 and February 29, 2020, and the related consolidated statements of shareholders' equity, operations, and cash flows, together with the auditor's report. Copies of these documents have been mailed to the shareholders who requested them, and they're also available on SEDAR and EDGAR. We will now proceed with the election of directors for the ensuing year. As determined by the board, the number of directors to be elected today is 9. Information with respect to each of the individuals nominated for the position of director of the company was set forth in the management proxy circular, and each of the nominees has agreed to serve as a director if elected. As at previous meetings, we'll be nominating and approving individual directors and not a slate of directors. Bylaw number A4 of the company sets out a procedure requiring shareholders to provide advance notice if they wish to nominate any person for election as a director of the company. The company has not received notice in accordance with the bylaw from any shareholder intending to propose a nominee for election at this meeting. Since there are no other nominations, I move to elect the directors named in our proxy circular. Again, I remind you that voting on all matters to be acted on at the meeting will take place electronically after the presentation of all voting matters. The next item of business is the reappointment of the independent auditors of the company. I move that PricewaterhouseCoopers LLP be reappointed as the independent auditors of the company until the next annual meeting of shareholders, and that the board of directors of the company be authorized to fix their remuneration. The final item of business is the approval of our annual non-binding advisory resolution on executive compensation, our say-on-pay vote. This resolution provides that, on an advisory basis, and without diminishing the responsibilities of the board of directors, shareholders accept the approach to executive compensation disclosed in the management proxy circular. I also move that this resolution be adopted. That concludes all of the items to be voted on at this meeting. We'll now move to electronic voting on the items of business presented. As mentioned earlier, voting today will be conducted by electronic ballot. I'll now take a moment to ask that the balloting be opened to registered holders and appointed proxy holders. Polls are now open, and at this point, all registered holders and proxy holders who have properly logged in with their control number or username and wish to vote will be able to see on the screen all motions brought forward at this meeting. Please register your votes by accessing the voting page and selecting the For or Withhold button next to the name of each proposed director, and with respect to the reappointment of PricewaterhouseCoopers as the company's auditors, and then by selecting the For or Against button next to the advisory vote on executive compensation. We'll provide registered shareholders and proxy holders with another brief moment to complete their electronic ballots. And once the balloting closes, the voting page will disappear and your votes will be submitted automatically. The scrutineers have provided me with a preliminary report of the ballots. On the election of the directors, all 9 nominees have been elected as directors of the company to hold office until the next annual meeting of the company in June 2022, or until their respective successors are elected or appointed. The motion to reappoint the auditors is also carried, and PricewaterhouseCoopers LLP has been reappointed as the independent auditors of the company. These motions were carried by a substantial majority of the votes cast. Finally, the say-on-pay resolution was also approved by a majority of the votes cast. Nevertheless, the level of support for the motion was below our expectations. The Compensation, Nomination, and Governance Committee of our board believes that the company's compensation program needs to be competitive in a challenging market for talent. The board and the committee believe that the executive compensation decisions that were made during the past year were appropriate and necessary to attract and retain leadership to execute the company's strategy. With this said, and while the resolution is advisory in nature and not binding, the board and the committee will review the results of our vote today in connection with their ongoing evaluation of the company's compensation program. As noted earlier, detailed voting results will be published on SEDAR and EDGAR and on our website after the conclusion of the meeting. It's now my pleasure to turn the meeting back over to John to provide an update on the company's business. Ahead of that, please note that John's presentation and the Q&A session later in the meeting may contain forward-looking statements. Shareholders should be aware that any forward-looking statements are made based on certain assumptions and are subject to risks and uncertainties that could cause actual results, performance, or achievements of the company to differ materially from those disclosed here today. We're adopting for this presentation the cautionary language regarding forward-looking statements that is set out in the company's annual report on Form 10-K, to which we refer you for additional details concerning the risks, uncertainties, and assumptions relating to our forward-looking statements. Please note that the slides for John's presentation are available in the investor section of the BlackBerry.com website. And now John will conclude the formal part of the meeting.
Thank you, Phil. And there is no further business to come before the meeting. I declare the formal part of the meeting to be concluded. So for everybody, that I have a short company video to show you. And then right after that, I will do a brief discussion of our performance and strategy of the company, and then followed by Q&A. So could we please cue the video, please?
Since day one, we've been determined to change the world. Our devices placed the office in the palm of your hand and changed how we work, forever. Our vision has expanded. Now we're pairing artificial intelligence with our trusted security and putting it everywhere. For too long, security was about what you stopped, but the Internet of Things is making everything smarter, including cyber threats. We've never been more connected or more vulnerable. As ransomware and cybercrime explode, security needs to do more. It needs to stay ahead of threats. It needs to keep you safe. It needs to be intelligent. Prevention is the best medicine. This is especially true for IT systems. Much like vaccines prevent infection, our intelligent security is a prevention-first approach that stops cyber attacks before they can launch. If there is a breach, we have remediation solutions and services ready and in place. We help our customers solve their most critical security challenges. We protect more than 500 million endpoints, including over 195 million cars. We have design wins with 23 of the top 25 electric vehicle OEMs, ensuring vehicle safety and security. 45 of Fortune 100 companies trust us with their security. Our security is NIAP certified as classified. It is the highest security level awarded for government and industry. While cybersecurity lets you stop threats, intelligent security gives you the freedom to reach higher, go further, and dream bigger. BlackBerry Intelligent Security lets you change the world again.
Okay, I hope you like the video. This video, we're very proud of the fact that this is all done in-house without spending money outside the company and getting other people to do it. So it's heartfelt and genuine, and I would say. I'm pleased right now to be able to provide you I would call the update or the State of the Union update. I put up a slide here about two converging, very large market force. One in cybersecurity. I'm sure that nobody would need me to explain more about all the ransomware that's coming on daily basis, and also the whole idea of smart. We call it smart everywhere, and this is really later on we'll talk about what is included, but it included obviously transportation, cities, devices, individuals, and so forth. And you could see that we put up a number of trends that we believe are what is really driving it. Let me name a couple of them. For example, the top left one, and this really was driven by the fact that remote working has been picking up steam. Mobile is really the key primary devices people are using to interact with each other's, with work, with home life, and with that advancement of mobile, 5G, and everything that behind it, that you could see the cybersecurity requirements goes up, and the risks and the threats are increasing every day.